Straw Hut Media.
Hi, everybody. I'm your host, Mark J. Parker, and this is Release Date Rewind. If you're a movie lover like I am, well, you're going to have a great time with this podcast because we celebrate milestone anniversaries in film. Thanks for checking out my show on the Straw Hut Media Network wherever you get your podcasts or watching on YouTube. If you're new here, in each episode, I like to bring on a friend or two or three to discuss a movie we love for its special anniversary. And we have such a special movie from a special filmmaker to talk about today. When you think of 80s movies, this is one of the most famous, at least in my mind. And its formula has been copied and admired for decades. This classic movie is The Breakfast Club from writer, director, producer John Hughes, and it just turned 40 years old this month. So grab your friends, wear your 80s character outfits, and if you'd like to watch or rewatch this movie before listening, you can rent it or you can borrow it from your library, which would be very appropriate for this movie, or I'm sure you can find it on some random site. All right, brains, athletes, basket cases, princesses, and criminals, settle in and no monkey business because it's time to rewind. Okay, everybody, I am so happy to have her back. We've already chatted for like 10 or 15 minutes about all kinds of amazing things. Welcome back to Release Date Rewind, my longtime friend, Jackie Renne, a.k.a. Jackie Randazzi, back when I knew her in high school, back in the day when we were sitting in the cafeteria, not in detention, but in study hall. We've talked about it before. Hi, Jackie.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're here, and thank you. I was just thanking Jackie before we recorded for jumping on. This wasn't really planned for long. This great movie, this anniversary, kind of snuck up on me already. So once I posted, and you said, "Oh my god, I just happened to rewatch this," I was like, oh, "You must do this. You must come back." And she's here. Yay! Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me. This was such an important movie to me, especially in high school. When we were in high school, like it was a rite of passage. So I'm excited to talk about it.
It's such an iconic movie, right? And I think I first saw it, obviously we weren't alive. Not yet.
Not yet.
In 85, a couple more years. But I must have, I didn't rent it. It was definitely on TV. I don't know what channel, but like, it's something about like a group of teens. And I wasn't a teen yet. I definitely was probably like middle school. When do you think you first saw it?
So I actually saw a picture. I had a subscription to Cosmo Girl, and I saw a picture. Yes, I did. Taking it back, that magazine doesn't even exist anymore. There was a picture, and it had like a bunch of like Rocky Horror and Breakfast Club, and it was just the picture of them sitting on the railing, and that was the first I'd ever like known of it. And so I was probably like middle school, and once I saw it on TV, like TNT or AMC or whatever channel was always playing it, I was like, well, I have to watch it. And I fell completely in love with it. And for the longest time, I only saw it cut for TV because I taped it off of TV. So I never had it unedited.
Right.
So when I finally got the DVD, I'm like, oh, there's actual swearing in this.
Oh yeah, and there's some big swearing. I mean, we get some F-bombs, we get some F slurs. I mean, it was 85. I mean, unfortunately, I even forgot after seeing this so many times throughout my life, although it had been a long time since I last rewatched it. I forgot it's rated R. I look at the poster, I'm like, wait, that movie's rated R? I'm like, oh yeah, we're getting dark and we're saying some FUs, and yeah, for sure. I probably, now that you bring up TNT, I think you're so right. I think that's probably how I discovered it as well. And I can't remember for the life of me, what did I watch first? The iconic season 1 Dawson's Creek episode, which I've talked about on the show, where they're in detention, which is a total homage to this great movie. I don't know if I saw that first or The Breakfast Club. I knew no matter what, I knew that like that was the Breakfast Club episode. But you know what? I just don't know if I saw the full movie by then, because that was, I think, like 5th or 6th grade for us. Yeah. So, I don't know what came first, but I definitely combine both of them in my mind. And Not Another Teen Movie, which, of course, lovingly pokes fun at this movie, which is also a great movie.
And there was the Lizzie McGuire episode, The Lunch
Oh,
Bunch, which I've definitely watched this first. And then
okay.
I was like, oh, Lizzie McGuire, like, they're doing
That's
a
so
take on the
funny.
Breakfast Club. That's really
Yeah,
cool. And I remember that
that
was
is
like
cool.
eighth grade.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know that one. Now I gotta watch it. And you might have seen The Lunch Bunch was apparently the original title for this. So
Right.
how perfect that they took that. Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, before we nerd out more about this movie, because I'm so happy Jackie's here to talk about the Brat Pack. We were just talking about Demi and the Substance as she's on her rise with awards. And yeah, you were mentioning like not only did the Brat Pack have these 5 stars, these teens, right?
Yeah.
But we had Demi, we had Andrew McCarthy. Who else was in it? Who am I
There
missing?
was
Oh,
some like Brat Pack adjacent people. So you
right, like
had
John Cryer, right?
like John Cryer, Mayor Winningham,
Yep.
Rob Lowe, I definitely think was like
That's,
in the Brat Pack.
yep.
And
Yep.
you had like Leah Thompson was kind of Brat Pack
Oh yeah.
adjacent, and because she was
Uh-huh.
in the movie with Eric Stoltz, the Some Kind of
Right.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
I
think
would say,
Mary Stu. No, not who was in that one with them? Not Mary Stuart Masterson, or I think it was her. Yeah.
yeah, it's
The,
it's Mary Stuart Masterson and Eric
yeah.
Stoltz in that
Right.
one.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. So yeah, those were like adjacent. I would say like because this movie's kind of like core Brat Pack. Would you say?
100%. I mean, this is who the Brat Pack was. So the Brat Pack, have you watched the Bratz documentary?
The one that just came out recently that
Yeah.
Andrew McCarthy made. I haven't watched it yet, and now I'm kicking myself because hello everyone, I should have watched it before this. I heard it wasn't so great. Did you check it out?
I did, and it just kind of cemented my opinion on Andrew McCarthy a little bit.
Oh, oh
I'm
boy.
not his biggest fan.
Okay.
Um,
Wow. All right.
I
I don't know enough
Team
about him,
Ducky,
so
Team
yeah.
Ducky, all
Oh,
the
Team
way.
Doug. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
I'm sure he's lovely in person.
Yeah.
I find his characters a little grating, and you can see that
Yeah.
he puts some of his self into his
Got it.
characters, I guess, and he comes off a little grating, a little awkward
Yeah.
when interviewing people because he tends to talk over them.
Ah.
So if
Mm.
that was a feedback that you got from anybody else, that's 100% accurate. But it was really insightful. If anything else, just to hear, especially from Demi Moore,
Mm.
how that impacted her. I mean, aside
Mm.
from her being one of like the highest paid actresses, like once she
Mhm.
finally hit it big and, Ghost happened and then,
Oh God.
A Few Good
Love it.
Men and
Yeah.
then Striptease happened. And she basically after GI Jane kind of like tanked a little bit.
Right.
Um,
Which is so crazy back then, how her career really shifted, and it's like, I mean, we
well,
were
it's
kind of
because
too
she was
young
a
to,
woman in a position of
yeah,
power. She was making a lot of
yeah,
money, and people didn't like that. And I think
yeah.
that it just shows that going back to the Bratz documentary, one of the things that I noticed is that even in talking to the guy who did the article, so this whole thing came about
Mm.
because it was a profile on Emilio Estevez. And so then he started kind of picking at all of these other actors that were in that circle because the article came out when they were doing St. Elmo's Fire. So he
Mm.
was in direct contact with, Demi Moore and Rob Lowe. And these were all really, really talented people that were on the rise. And this guy was like, pushing 30 and sounded really, really bitter in this article that he was talking about these kids that are just like, the Brat Pack moniker it felt like a way, even when he was like apologizing, quote unquote, it
Mm.
felt like it was a way for him to diminish the efforts because they were younger.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like
Yeah, it's
it kind of
interesting
knocked
because
him down a peg.
right, because this group was so successful. I mean, these movies that John Hughes made with these young people were so huge. But yeah, I feel like even in hindsight, as because we weren't there at the time of their newness, they've always been kind of knocked down a bit. But it's like they obviously were successful, so people liked them, people saw themselves in these characters. So why kind of like there were just certain people that I feel like have sort of thrown some shade at these at these movies.
And it's throughout their whole career. So it's like, even as Demi Moore got more successful, I feel like there was just more ways to kind of like keep her down, because she was like, oh, she was just a member of the Brat Pack that got lucky.
Weird.
Like that's how I kind of interpreted it. And same thing with Emilio Estevez. Like, oh, he's just another, before we knew what a Nepo baby was, he's just another Nepo baby, riding on Martin Sheen's success, blah, 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 blah. When he had talent all in his own right.
Totally. Oh yeah, I mean, I know Charlie Sheen, we know, is cuckoo, and Emilio is kind of cuckoo. I still am so like confused and annoyed with him that he didn't do the short-lived Mighty Ducks like Disney Plus show because of like he didn't want to get vaccinated. It's just like, oh my god, like, okay, whatever, right? Anyway, I'll stop. But no, those Sheen boys they were talented. I mean, the whole Sheen family. So, hey, I mean,
and even Judd Nelson, you look at interviews of him and he's so self-possessed, and it's just, you wonder if like all of, the little microaggressions that were kind of thrown at them over the years and had the career trajectory that he's had, if that, had an effect on him, because he was incredibly well-spoken. He was an amazing actor. Honestly, one of my favorite parts about this movie is what he brings to it, so
for sure. Oh yeah, he is, to me, out of the group, Bender is the star. Judd Nelson is the star, and he's kind 100%. Of the villain. I mean, we know the villain is the man, the school, the faculty.
Vernon,
right. Vernon is totally, but Bender is kind of another villain, just different motives and different things he wants, so yeah, I rewatching, I was like, man, you're like really awful, but I love you.
But that's, it's so complicated, because I feel like I'm an actualized person, as we approach our 40s. It's like, I actually know who I am. And like, I just remember what I was like in high school, and I would have 100% fallen for all of his bullshit. And even still, I'm like, God, you appeal to my basest instincts. Like, he 100% has, like, Bender, the way that he is being played, has ADHD. He's he's frantic. He's, saying whatever intrusive thought comes into his mind. He's always touching things and running around, and he's loud, and
his different voices. Like, I had laughed out loud. Right. I completely forgot when he's in the playing basketball, and Vernon's like, "Get over here," and he says like,
and he has the shoe, just the one shoe on.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, he's a weirdo.
I was like kind of grossed out with myself, because I'm like, girl, you know better. He's a walking red flag, and you're so charmed still.
Like, he's got the great hair. He looks good skin, which that in hindsight, I'm like, no, his skin can't look that good. If he's the criminal, he's got to have a little bit of acne scar, like something. He looks too good, but that hair is silky smooth. It's like, I want Bender's hair. I'm like, why did I just get a haircut? Because I want to grow it out like Bender, Yeah. It's beautiful.
It's that floppy hair that everybody had in like the late 80s, early 90s. And I think that broke us, because even like the Don Bluth cartoons that we were watching as kids, if you look like Anastasia, Titan AE, all of them had like the floppy hair.
The flaps. Oh yeah, I loved it. Are you kidding? Oh my God, I loved it. And I was going to say, is it coming back? It's not, because now everything's like the mushroom, weird, fluffy mullet, and like all these teen boys have this strange cloud of hair now. And I'm like, no, bring back the silky smooth,
when we were seniors in high school, everybody had that weird, like, Jared Padalecki, like, long, flippy hair. It was really bad.
It was not good at all, but I mean, Jared Padalecki was so pretty, and I was just like, sure, yeah, that's the thing to do. Better than in middle school, everyone had
the ramp.
The ramp, exactly. Yeah. The flip, the ramp, the wave, and it was gelled. It was like the hard ramp. It was just, you could skate right off that thing, right? Everyone looks so good. Everyone is so cute and young, but like the hair on the girls is just so 80s to me. It's so like poofy.
I love Molly Ringwald's hair. Like
it works so well.
It's so beautiful and so bouncy. Living in Florida, I don't have any volume anymore.
Beautiful. You got
Thank
great
you.
hair, girl. Both the color, the
As
cut,
I'm
the
frizzing
waves.
out right now, I'm like, don't look. It's
You're
really
like, this is
bad
a filter.
But I have no volume. The volume on Molly Ringwald's hair, I'm like, that's the
Yeah.
volume that I've wished for. Like that Cheryl and Fenn kind of like bob.
Yeah. Where it's just like staying up and it looks effortless, right? And it's like
Yes.
bouncy and they all are so
No matter
good.
which way she flips her hair. But Ali Sheedy's hair is what my hair looked like when I chopped off all my hair in high school. So I'm like, I don't want to go back there.
That's so funny. I don't really remember you having Ali Sheedy hair. My memories of your look in high school, I feel like you always had your hair back. Would you say like you often had it pulled back?
I was told that I looked like a flamenco dancer because...
We'll be right back.
From John Hughes, creator of Mr. Mom and National Lampoon's Vacation, and writer-director of Universal's 16 Candles, comes another hit, The Breakfast Club.
I was texting some people the other day, and I honestly, Jackie, could not remember. I was like, did we have lockers in high school? I feel like I would walk by lockers, but where was my locker? Like, I had no memory. I remember maybe freshman. Like, here's my question. Do you remember, did we have the same locker all 4 years of high school?
We did.
Or did it change yeah, we did. Okay.
We did. So it was the same combo, too. And I remember exactly where my locker was. It was so far away from my freaking homeroom.
Yes. Okay. So I bet our lockers were probably, because P and R, we were near each other. So, okay. Now I remember, because I thought that was maybe just freshman year. I'm like, did I have a locker senior year? So that was all 4 years. It was all the way like at the end of the building, almost like closest to like the middle school. Do you know what I mean?
So I was in the Spanish hallway. So you were probably in my hallway with me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think most of our grade probably was over there. I remember there was lots of light coming in. Yeah. Like it was, but it was just so far. And you're right. It was near Spanish class. Yes. I forgot it was near Spanish class. You're right.
But then you and I think, were we in the same homeroom or you were in, because I think our cut off.
We might have been. I can't remember. I know I can remember all the P's near me where we sat. I can't remember. And Becky Reed was in my homeroom, so you must have been in my homeroom.
We were. I'm like, I feel like we were, because we would talk about like Party 05.
Yeah, I feel like if I remember correctly, you were like just to the right of me over there. I think it was like ours.
And then Becky was like behind me.
Probably, right near you. Yep. And then because I remember, you know why? I remember good old Becky in homeroom because sometimes she would wear Sailor Moon outfits.
Oh yeah,
like complete and I just remembered that like, wow, okay, first thing in the morning. Okay, hi Sailor Moon. So yeah. She
went to Japan on a exchange, right? And then she came back and like could speak Japanese. And I was so impressed.
Oh yeah, I remember it was like, whoa, you really are so advanced and
like you're so talented. I can't even keep up with my French. This is amazing.
I know. But yeah, with Party 05, that brings me to, and we've talked about this before on the show, but so Jackie and I were never in detention together. I don't know if I can't really remember. I'm sure I was in detention a couple times. Did you ever get into never a Saturday detention?
I did get a Saturday, but I talked my way out of it.
Oh my God. This is amazing. This is even more perfect that you're here. Okay, wait. Okay, you got to tell us everything. Why did you get a Saturday? What was it for? What year were you, do you think?
So it was sophomore year. I got caught cutting because there was this little hallway. And I was just, a misanthropic teen. And, I was very angsty. Again, this is why this movie was made for me. I was very angsty. Nobody got me. I was kind of feeling on the outside of everything. And so I would just, do shit to act out. And so there was this little hallway that nobody ever went down. It was in between the stairwell and then the emergency exit. And it was just this weird little white entryway. And I would just hide out in there and I would draw in my sketchbook and I would read books and stuff. Or I would go to the girls' room and put my feet up on the toilet so nobody can scream. Nobody knew that I was in there. And I got caught the one time by the vice principal. So it wasn't Argo. It was the guy that replaced him, the generic looking white dude with the white hair. He was bald and he had a white beard.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I forgot all about him. I can picture him, but I can't remember his name. Wow. So he caught you.
He caught me.
Had he seen you a few times and then he caught you, or he just like, you think he just saw you the one time?
He just caught me. And I was like, I'm just having a real bad day, cut me some slack. Like, I was bullshitting. And so
you're I'm sad and like people are mean to me, you know, like coming up with anything. Yeah.
So basically what ended up happening was I got a Saturday and then I talked to my math teacher. I was skipping her class. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I talked to whatever his name was, and he said if I served 2 consecutive detentions after school for you, that we could waive the Saturday. And
for your math teacher.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so I made it up. He didn't say anything.
I
made it up.
That's amazing.
And
wow.
So I told her, I'm like, look, he says that as long as you're okay with it, as long as I can serve those 2 detentions and you write it off, then we can waive the Saturday. And so she reached out and was like, yes, Jacqueline can, instead of a Saturday, please let her serve 2 after school detentions directly with me. And then, I'll sign off on this. And I went back to him and I'm like, so whatever her name was, I was like, let's just call her Mrs. Anderson because I have no idea what her name was.
Right.
Mrs. Anderson says that if I serve those 2 detentions with her, if you could waive the Saturday, I kind of told her what was going on and, as long as we're cool. And he's like, yeah, whatever, get out of my office. I got bigger things to do with, kind of a thing. And I talked my way out of a Saturday detention. So I've never had a Saturday because I got creative.
Oh, and it worked out. They never talked about it. So that's great. Or if they did, it must have just been like, yeah, are you cool with it? Yeah, I'm cool with it. Like, oh my God, Jackie, you are an icon. That's amazing. That is amazing. Round of applause for being so smart and clever and fast. You had to think of this quickly. Wow, that's how you do it, everybody. Fake it till you make it.
It's my entire life
2
story.
parties,
they
don't need to, right? They don't need to talk to each other. You can just be the middleman and you are in control. I love it. Oh my gosh, that is amazing. That right there is a social clip right now. If you're okay with me blasting that out.
100%.
Right? That should have made its way into Breakfast Club. That would be such a great, that one of these characters would have for sure done that. Bender would have done it, or at least tried to.
He would have tried to.
Right?
I don't know if he would have had the...
He had too much of a reputation. They're onto him. But maybe someone like Claire, right?
He couldn't shut his mouth for long enough to get away with it.
Yeah. He'd be too proud, boastful, and then it's like, yeah.
It is now 7:06. You have exactly 8 hours and 54 minutes to ponder the error of your ways. Any questions?
Yeah. Does Barry Manilow know that you raid his wardrobe?
Now, everybody, we're going to rewind. We are going to focus on The Breakfast Club, which came out 40 years ago, February 15th, 85. Now, this is what was going on, Jackie. I'll set the scene for us. You shout out whatever you think about these things just to sort of place this movie in our memories, right? So this was back in the Ronald Reagan administration. The top song was Careless Whisper from George Michael and Wham, followed by the number 2 song, I Wanna Know What Love Is by Foreigner. That was the number 2 most popular song on the Billboard chart. And get this, Whitney Houston's debut album had just dropped the day before, February 14th, 1985.
I didn't even know what
just, right? Oh my God. Can you imagine? What a time. That had, oh God, now I'm blanking on all the songs, but lots of big ones. I mean,
I Want to Dance with Somebody.
Oh God, hold on. Give me a second.
I know?
How will I know? Of course. Yeah. Exactly. Thank you.
We're not going to try to sing with this voice. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. Just fast forward this part. Yeah,
I gotta work on my pitch.
It's just impossible. But I mean, what a time for some of these big songs that we've heard. On the TV side, the final episode of The Dukes of Hazzard had just aired on TV. So that had just come to an end in February. Kind of a random time for a big show like that to end. But I guess, who knows? I'm sure with contracts and they were probably like, all right, you're just going to have a shorter final season. Who knows, right? But so that was a bigger thing on TV, and other popular movies that were out at the same time. Beverly Hills Cop, that was number 1. Eddie Murphy, of course. Witness with Harrison Ford.
Oh my God.
The Killing Fields and Vision Quest. Now, I admit, everybody, those 80s movies I just mentioned, I've heard about them for years. I've never seen any of them.
You've never seen Witness?
I've never seen Witness, and I really want to. I feel like
Careful
it's so
out among them English. You've never seen Witness? Oh my God.
I know. And Amish country, basically our backyard. I mean, yeah,
It's why I'm afraid of parking garages. You have to watch. Well, that and Prom Night.
Really? Yeah, parking garages are scary in a lot of movies. Pelican Brief, Scream 4, Cursed.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Interesting. I didn't know there was a parking garage scene. Ooh, now I really have to watch. I love good parking garage scenes.
Well, and Patti LuPone is in it for all of like 5 minutes.
How funny.
She plays Harrison Ford's sister, and she's like got all the attitude in the world and the worst haircut in the world. And like, I'm like, Patti, I'm trying to like place why you had this haircut. And like my whole life, I'm like, she is a beautiful woman. What is this hair?
Yeah, I wonder if maybe she cut it really short for a role or for a wig, and it was maybe in an odd length or something.
It was a mullet. It was a straight up mullet. So maybe she had to cut it for like, so it would fit under a wig.
Yeah.
But like she wanted to be fun and funky, and it was like 85.
Okay, I already wanted to watch, and now I'm like, okay, let's hurry this up so I can watch Witness. That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I got, and Beverly Hills Cop. It's crazy because I think I've seen like Beverly Hills Cop 3 on HBO when they would air at a time. So I've seen some, but I'm just like, that's such a classic movie. I cannot believe I've never seen it.
It is a classic. It's worth it just to have it in your pop culture lexicon. But I rewatched it recently. It doesn't have the staying power that like I watch Coming to America every Christmas. If you're going to pick an Eddie Murphy movie, Coming to America is, well, I think too, because you're getting from like Lisa's perspective, and there really isn't a female perspective to be had at all in Beverly Hills Cop. Yeah, and I find that more and more.
Yeah.
It's like in our current climate, I like to see a dual perspective.
Yeah, so those were popular movies, and in comes The Breakfast Club. So Jackie, I'm going to throw it over to you as I normally do. In your own words, it could be whatever you want. It could be short. Tell us, for anyone out there who somehow has not seen this movie.
You've been living under a rock.
Jeez, I mean, are you okay? Tell us, in your own words, what is The Breakfast Club about?
So The Breakfast Club is about 5 kids who get a Saturday detention, and even though they're from vastly different socioeconomic backgrounds and different, high school castes, they're able to come together and find commonality amongst themselves by, sharing their problems and, sharing their hopes for the future. And to break it down the way that they have it, there is a princess, a jock, a basket case, a nerd, and a criminal. I don't know if a nerd is the
right brain, one. Right?
A brain, that was it. And a criminal. And they're able to kind of get past all of those barriers that are kind of keeping them apart in their everyday lives and come together by the end of the movie.
Absolutely. And I don't want to bring it up now, but since you did bring up the end of the movie, in my adult late 30s point of view,
we were going to talk about it.
Yeah, well, we'll save it. We'll go in order, but I just want to let you and everyone know the ending. I don't love it. I love this movie, but the ending is so easy, so cute. Like, I just feel like I think it was Universal. I just feel like some studio was like, hey, in the ending, can you actually like let them all like get together or something? I just felt wrapped up too. Kiss. Yes, right. And I'm like,
I have
crazy.
Such beef
Maybe
with
one
that now.
couple. Yeah. Okay. Good. I figured.
I have such beef with this ending. And in general, I feel like this was just what you did. I rewatched Speed recently, and I'm like, Sandy, you knew him for a mere day. I understand we all want to suck face with Keanu Reeves, but you're rolling around in the rubble, girl. Go out to dinner first. Like, this is ridiculous.
True.
And,
but hey, she was under a lot of stress. I mean, she just needed support.
She needed a release. But like with this, I feel like, and again, I think it's with male writing too. And I don't mean to keep bringing it back to that. I get very, very bitter when I look back at movies and I find that they don't have the staying power with me. If it's really like egregiously like male writing, like you can tell the writer was writing from a male perspective, and now we make them kiss. And it's like, as a woman, I'm like, that shit would not happen. Like,
right.
even in my, like, I admitted earlier that I 100% I was buying what John Bender was selling, and probably, like, okay, would have sucked face, but I would have yelled at him a lot more and been really aggressive, and I would not have sat on the car and made out with him in front of my dad. I would have, like,
I'm shocked. I'm shocked
like,
by that.
been behind a building, hid him in a closet. Like,
and I'm like, for real, John Hughes. I mean, amen, rest in peace. Like, what a god. But like, whoa, you're not even gonna have. I thought for sure, let's have Dad say like, what are you doing with him, and have Claire say like, shut up, Dad, or like, just mind your. I don't know. Like, there's not even gonna be a quippy little moment. She just gets in the car and they drive.
What the hell was that about?
A brain, a beauty, a jock, a rebel, and a recluse.
Can't believe this is really happening to me.
Before this day is over, they'll break the rules.
There's like extended scenes, and when you go into some of the stuff that got cut for Claire, she was like, she holds up a paper and like, my parents ignore me basically, and this is my dad. Okay, honey, nice that you're home. My wallet's on the counter. And then her mom's like, are we going to St. Bart's? And it's like, you know what? You can go to St. Bart's by yourself. And she's like, no, I'm going to take Claire. And it's just like, it's a back and forth between the parents, and they kind of ignore her. So I can believe that the dad is like, you know, somewhat disassociative, but he's not blind. You're sitting and like full on, and the scene is longer too. If you watch those cut scenes, it's like there's a whole extended conversation that happens before they just. This cut is much better than what they had, because he's like bossy and he's like, put your coat down, and like really going in, like, and it was way grosser than what they cut to with like the really romantic music and everything.
Oh, wow. Jeez. Yeah, like I don't even love, I know we're jumping around, but I don't even love when she goes into the like closet where he goes back in to, you know, pretend.
See,
he was
that
there
I
the
find
whole
more
time.
believable, because that's exactly what you would do with John Bender.
That's what you would do, but I still don't like it, because I'm like, Claire, like,
no, it's terrible, and you'd feel like trash after. But at the same time, it's like, that I can get, because you're like, it's mutually assured destruction. You're both using each other, and like, it's just red flag city. But I get it, because it's like, no one will ever believe you that we hooked up in this closet. That's more of what I see with her personality. So I have something that I think would be fun for us. I think before we wrap up, there was I read that John Hughes initially, before everything kind of fell apart with his relationships with the actors in this movie, he wanted to do a Breakfast Club every 10 years, and he wanted to explore their lives as they age. Before we wrap up, I am dying to know like what your take on that is. So
wow, I love that.
Because I got some kind of dark takes
on
where these kids have ended up. Because it's like sliding doors.
Yeah.
Where, like, if they go this way, here's what could happen. If they go this way, here's what could happen then.
Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. I would have loved that, because it's like Before Sunrise. I just talked about that on the show. Like, I love anything where we can. But I'm part of the problem. I do like a sequel. I like to see my friends again. I like to, especially if it's been a long time. Let's see them get older. Let's see what's changed. Right? That's interesting. I'll have to think about where they all could have gone, because oh god, some things could get dark.
It's not a happily ever after situation. And I'm like, I in high school, I related to the line, like, when you grow up your heart dies, because I'm like, yes, adults don't understand what I'm going through. That is 100% true. And now I'm like, I have this very dark take on where all these kids have ended up, and I'm like, did my heart die? Am I just a bitter old woman?
You're like, wow, okay, that really happened to me. All right, here I am. That's so funny. Wow. But speaking of the group, I'll just tell everyone, great little summary there, Jackie. Now I'll just tell everyone where everyone kind of was, what they had just done previously in their careers, right? So, of course, we're mentioning John Hughes, writer, director, and producer. He had written this a couple years earlier, but then had written 16 Candles, which I've talked about on the show, and that was actually his directorial debut. So he made that one first, but this was his second film. So he had just done 16 Candles with, of course, 2 of the 5 kids, Anthony Michael Hall and Molly Ringwald. It's so funny. You probably saw Molly Ringwald, I guess, at first was going to be Allison, the mute, basket case.
That would have
but I
been
guess
more
she
fun.
was. You think that would have been more fun? Yeah.
It would have been playing for her. I think this was more of a challenge because I think that Molly Ringwald's like kind of a fun little freak. Like she was really into a lot of the music that we have. Her and John Hughes vibed because they were both like into all of these. The reason why we have all of this like English new wave music in these movies, and now you've got kids out in the Midwest that are listening to like Oingo Boingo and Spandau Ballet, is because that's what like Molly Ringwald was into. She was definitely like a cool little freak, and
that
I think
is
Claire
so
was
cool.
probably more of a challenge for her.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, because she fits the role really well. I now can't really imagine anyone but her in it, right? Because it's just all so memorable.
She's just a great actress.
I do kind of feel like, if she was Allison, it would actually show more of her range, There's less to say, but yeah. So anyway, she was really hired to do that at first, but she was so upset, and I guess it really told John. I guess they felt very close already just after the one movie, and she's like, I don't want to do that, and she got the studio to like, have her play Claire, so she kind of got her way, which is pretty impressive because she was still super young. Maybe she was 18. I mean, not even, I don't think, because 16 Candles, she wasn't a legal 18, I think.
No, she was actually 16.
She really was 16, yeah. So she was still very young. So good for you, girl. But so he had just done 16 with those 2. We have Emilio Estevez, who is just so good as the jock, as the athlete, Andrew. He was just in The Outsiders, classic, another 80s absolute classic. And Repo Man. We have the great Judd Nelson, who we've been raving about. He was in Rock and Roll Hotel before this. And Ali Sheedy was in War Games the year or 2 before this. So everyone was kind of on the rise, Some had done more than others. But then here, lightning in a bottle with this cast, right? Do you love, does anyone in the cast not work for you?
No, everyone is perfect. There are some moments that I wish that Anthony Michael Hall didn't always go for like an elderly black man impression when he was trying to be cool. Because it happens in this movie, and it happens in Weird Science where he's like, yeah, baby. Like darling, funny. You can't do that.
Chicks cannot hold their smoke. That's what it is.
I know. Oh yeah, there's a little bit of that. A few of them do that in this movie I caught. Like little lines here and there that have a affectation that you're like, okay. Yeah. It was a different time, right?
I just meant even when I was back in high school, I'm like, you are not cool doing that. Like,
right.
It was just, it was cringe. I guess it works though, because Brian in his everything is very cringe character. But I think everything 100% works. And Ali Sheedy, out of everybody, I think, maybe equal to Judd Nelson, knew her character, if not more. Like, she really got what made Allison tick. And a lot of her suggestions, so similarly to 16 Candles, John Hughes wrote this in basically 2 days. And because 16 Candles he wrote in a weekend. Yeah, and he was just so churning these scripts out. Yeah. And he wasn't precious about his work, and was really receptive to the cast giving suggestions. That whole the end confessional scene, which is just framed beautifully. I love that shot.
That's the most memorable for me. Yeah.
And everybody is, because it almost looks like they're in little huts, because they're sitting underneath the chair, and
they kind of have their own
their own little cubby. And it's very it brings it back to childhood because they're sitting on the floor. It's very vulnerable. Like, it's just one of the best scenes in the movie. And he allowed them to ad-lib why they were in detention. And a lot of the back and forth between all of these characters was ad-libbed by the actors.
Wow.
And it just... any suggestion that they felt like wasn't within their character, Ali Sheedy in particular was like, no, like when everybody's smoking pot, she's like, Allison wouldn't do that. And
which is so interesting because I would think she kind of would. Like the people who do it are kind of surprising to me, you know, which I like.
100%.
You know?
But I feel like you would expect Allison to do it.
Right.
But she's a liar. And she's probably never like drank vodka a day in her life.
I know. I love when he's like, what's your poison? She just goes, vodka. Like
wherever, whenever. Oh my God. Yeah.
I'm
so
a
it's
nymphomaniac. I think this was the first time I had ever heard that word. I think I learned what that 100%. Was from this, right?
It was This was the first time I knew what a nymphomaniac was. And yeah, it's just like, I've never had sex either. I'm also a pathological liar. That makes me think that she's never smoked a day in her life. She's never drank a day in her life. She was like me. She was a little suburban kid that wanted to act out because she felt on the outside of things. And like, you know, as opposed to Allison, I had a very lovely, supportive home life. So but like, you know, adults didn't get me. I was like, especially since I was diagnosed with ADD, they would always like, they didn't know how to deal with like attention deficit or any of that, and would make you feel sort of less than. So I was dealing with that too, and that would like, I 100% would act out and do some of the weird shit that I've done just because you know, I'm bored. I get why Allison does what she does, but I think that she's a total phony and wouldn't smoke, wouldn't drink, wouldn't do any of that.
Bare their souls.
I'm a nymphomaniac.
Are your parents aware of this?
Take some chances.
I love that Ali Sheedy was able to have this kind of input on her character, and all again like weird shit just to get attention, like smashing up all of the the Captain Crunch and the pixie sticks.
She's got the weirdest lunch I've ever seen. I mean, oh God,
and the dandruff and everything.
The dandruff. Like, I know. I was gonna say. I know you might.
For the record, I've never done anything that disgusting.
Okay, good. I was gonna say she can be your spirit animal, but no forced dandruff. I mean, that's a lot of dandruff.
I desperately wanted to be Claire, but I was definitely more of. I mean, right down to like the dirty chucks and the weird like grandma rockabilly skirts. That's what I was wearing. Not as dowdy. But like, that's more of what I was wearing in high school.
It is so amazing how, like she's got such a style. And like, even though we were growing up about, 15, 20 years later, we were that age, that we knew people. I mean, you were one of the, we knew people that would have some of that same style.
Bag.
Yeah. And like, the dirty, the dark, the weird, the baggy. Totally.
I've got pictures of me with eyeliner that's like down to here. As it stands now, I'm somewhat of a reformed high school, like goth adjacent person. I still wear quite a bit of eye makeup, but it was bad.
That's good.
Like,
it was well back then. A lot of girls really did like the skunk eyes, like just like
it was like the Avril Lavigne smudgy.
Circles. Yeah.
Yes. And I looked like a raccoon. And when she's like, I like that black shit under my eyes, with the most egregious, awful movie makeover of all time, with the stupid poofy bow in her hair. I'm like, she looked beautiful as it was.
I know. And again, going back to the ending, Jackie, I agree. I'm like, okay, maybe give her a quote unquote makeover because it's the 80s and it's a teen movie and someone's got to be
put a bobby pin in her hair and call it a day.
Yeah, and where did these clothes come from? Was Claire wearing that under her? Like what?
Right. Like, was Allison wearing that under the giant grandma sweater? Like, okay, for the record.
What is this pink like dress, right?
Like, it was like a pink camisole and it was belted, which, all right, by all means, queen, yes, belt, give yourself a waist, like, love that for you. You can still be fashionable and be edgy. Right. but like,
and show a little bit more skin, like, you know, that's okay,
yes,
sure, ooh, you know, but
like,
where did this come from? If anything, I'm like,
yeah,
I even made a note on my phone when I was watching. I was like, couldn't they have like just quickly like snuck over to like the theater wing and like pulled like, you know, gone through some clothes or something like that? Maybe would have made sense, right?
right. But like,
Yeah.
you know, get her a pair of like pedal pushers from when they did Grease or something.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like where she could still look a little weird, but it's like this other side to her, which is cute, but I just don't like how Andy is like then so enamored with her. I'm like,
Right. And because it's
no.
not, that one always struck me as like, when I was in high school, I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, or at least looking back on myself in high school of why I accepted it, because we're all just filled with hormones and want to hook up with everybody. And like, that shit happens. Okay, cool. But as an adult, like, gross. It's gross.
Oh, I know. It's like, think, like, take another second and just think about what
Has she
you
washed her hair? Probably not.
Oh, the dandruff. Oh God. I know. And also I'm just like, where did Claire, I mean, you got like kind of like a blowout, girl. Like your hair is now like poofy, but like straight. Like where did this all come from? You know?
No amount of backcombing, unless she had that much grease in her hair that Claire
Oh
was
my
able
God.
to use it to tease. First of all, brave of you to go in there. If she was literally, and I guess they use Parmesan cheese, which is even grosser. The fact that Ali Sheedy let someone put Parmesan cheese in her hair for her to shake out. That's disgusting.
Wow. That's a crazy
Like,
trivia. Oh my God. Okay. Wow. Ugh, yeah. Ugh.
They only met once,
I don't want to be alone anymore.
You don't have to be.
but it changed their lives forever.
I mean, I consider you guys my friends. I'm not wrong, am I?
yeah, there's so many gross things with Ali Sheedy and food in this. Like in the deleted scenes, she's eating Doritos on a toilet. It's nice because in that same deleted scene, she goes past Vernon's office and they're like, "Girl, get your ass over here!" When they're like, it was an extended part of when they're running around the school,
Iconic.
and she's just like, "Fuck you" to Vernon, and he doesn't see, and he's beating on the soda machine. And Claire's like, she's nuts, but she's cool. Like, I liked how that extended their relationship. I liked the conversation that they were having when she was doing the makeover. I liked the relationship building, but how it was executed, again, I think it's the failure of a male only perspective when writing female characters. It was nice, but like girls wouldn't do that. It would be like, you know what, girl, let's just like brush your hair and you know, I'm gonna take this belt, I'm gonna belt your sweater. There you are, you look beautiful. And then they would walk out together and she wouldn't hook up with Andy.
Yeah, exactly. Amen. I know. If anyone out of the two couples, and I say that very loosely, everybody, like no one's sticking together. But who do you like together more, Andy and Allison or Bender and Claire, if you had to choose? I think I kind of like Andy and Allison as a couple, but they needed a bit more.
They needed more chemistry, and it's like I understand that, you know, they had that moment when they were up in the upper floor of the library and they're talking. And even Andy says something that like is one of my absolute favorite lines. You know, we're all pretty bizarre. Some of us are just better at hiding it. And that's really stuck with me throughout my entire life.
I completely agree with that statement. I think everyone is so bizarre. Everyone is so weird. You just are different levels of weird and you just kind of hide the real weird in different ways, right? Yeah. Amen.
I literally, if I am disgusted, if I am like terrified or really happy or feeling a little bit of schadenfreude, I'll hear it. It's all in my face. And like, I can't hide that. And so I've always kind of beat myself up about it because I can't, like, I'm just weird. I just am who I am. And like, remembering, like, especially now as an adult and kind of having that reminder, like hearing that line again when we were watching this, I'm like, God, I think I needed that. Because I question myself sometimes. I'm like, am I just too unpalatable for the average person?
No, I know what you mean. Yeah, even still, all these years later, you kind of still question yourself. And I mean, even as an adult, I mean, you know yourself more, you're more comfortable with yourself, but it's still not easy making friends or, dealing with
No.
coworkers. So yeah, you're kind of still often kind of comparing yourself to others, which sounds worse than it is, but we all just kind of
Yes.
naturally do it. So I hear you. Yeah. But no, you are very palatable. Don't you worry.
Thank you. But like, yeah, I think that there are less. Allison and Andy needed more time for their relationship to develop, but they're less toxic than Bender.
Just like a couple more conversations, right? They just needed like maybe two more, because they have the hallway thing with the vodka, and there's like story. I mean, Brian's there when she dumps out her bag, but and they're high, and so
and then
there's just not enough between them,
She's like, don't worry about it. Everything's cool. Like, she does want to talk about it. That's why she dumped the bag. And then they have a kind of a heart-to-heart, and that's sweet, but it's not enough for me. But I do think that if they chose to pursue it, there is a better chance for them to have a normal, healthy relationship. He could bring Allison out a little bit so she's not like, meeping in a corner.
It's oh my God. One of my favorite moments, the most memorable moments for me is when she just goes meep and then puts her head down. I mean, so good. So like bizarre. I had never seen anything like that before on film. I'm like, what is this character? Right? Yeah.
Or when she just out of completely nowhere, and it's like,
and then they all like look at her.
Yeah.
So weird. Yeah.
I think that he could bring her out a little bit, and then she could bring him down to earth a little bit and give him a way to, I don't know, because she doesn't really talk to her parents. I'm walking this back a little bit. I'm like, well, maybe like he could kind of like stand up to his parents a little bit, but I don't even know if she has the capacity to give him that, or even just maybe being supportive and not interested in him solely for success. Maybe that would give him enough of confidence in his own agency that he would be able to speak up to his parents and kind of push back a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, totally. No, that's true. Yeah, because he obviously, we know he has major issues with his dad, who wants to always push him to be the best, and then she says her parents ignore her, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, they both don't have the healthiest relationships with their parents, but I don't know. I do like them together, but there's something missing. Whereas with Claire and Bender, don't get me wrong, I like when they're in the closet together, but I think it should be almost like a will they or won't they? Like, I don't want to see them actually kiss, but I want them both to want to, but then they're like pulling back at different times. And then at the end, they could just kind of look at each other and be like, see you around. And maybe eventually it'll happen, but it does not need to happen.
I like that much better. I don't think it needed to happen. I think that, again, it's sort of that wish fulfillment that you had in these 80s movies where why even was Sam in 16 Candles making out with Jake Ryan, like on top of a cake? Like you've barely spoken to each other.
Right.
Like, it's just this like wish.
It's fantasy. It's basic. It turns into fantasy. You're right. You're so right.
And I think in a movie that's so grounded, that really feels like a stage play, like this, it kind of takes you out of the seriousness of it. Because this was pretty rare that we had a movie with young people that didn't really have like wildly comedic beats and was completely not grounded in reality. Like if you look at 16 Candles compared to Breakfast Club, I know why people prefer like Breakfast Club to or prefer 16 Candles to Breakfast Club, because Breakfast Club is more serious, it's more grounded.
Oh yeah.
I think it takes you out of it a little bit to have that sort of like wish fulfillment. Oh, it's an 80s movie, let's have them hook up,
Right. Yeah, because this movie gets heavy. There are heavy moments, like we were saying. I mean, some R-rated language. Like it does get a little, I don't want to say disturbing, but dark at times. But then it's so fun and so funny. And then, we have a little bit of wish fulfillment. That's a perfect way to say it with this whole, the makeover. I just wish when Allison gets her makeover, I kind of wanted her to be like, all right, can I make over you now? And for Claire to be like, huh, okay, sure. It's been a weird day. Why not? And like for them both to kind of swap places. That could have been kind of fun, where it's just like an experiment, you know what I mean, rather than let me fix you. Like that's That feels a little
there was
weird. And then
nothing that needed
also,
fixing.
nothing that needed fixing. You all just agreed that like she's a weirdo, but we like her and like she's herself. Cool. So what are we doing fixing her? And then also in that same moment, I don't love how Claire pushes the essay writing onto Brian. I'm like, girl, can you relinquish some power, please? And like maybe, you should be writing the essay. You know what I mean? Like I just didn't love that. Poor Brian. I wrote my notes. God, poor Brian. Now he actually
Poor
has to do the
Brian,
work.
all alone.
He's always doing the work,
Yeah.
And he's all alone. You're right. And also I thought, okay, even though it's 85, why do we not have one person of color, even just a mixed race? I mean, come on. So white. And then also another quick thing, why is no one queer? And I'm like, all right, I guess maybe Brian's gay or bisexual or something. Maybe.
I would have loved that for him, because it would have been an extra layer of like, okay, I can't come out to my parents.
Right.
I need to be successful, and they have all these expectations of me. And then eventually
more
they'll
pressure.
expect me to marry a woman and like give them grandkids and stuff. And it's just like, that would have added so much more dimension to his story. And so interesting that you bring up the diversity thing. And I know this came up when you actually talked about 16 Candles and just the egregious examples of inclusivity that we've had. John Hughes is writing what he knows, and what he knows is a very white suburban existence. And unfortunately, at that time in that area of Chicago, with the segregation, you had segregation, desegregation happened. And then what these school districts did is they basically resegregated again. So you had like school districts that were almost exclusively African-American or white. So it's like, you may not have had more than like one Black kid in your class because of how the lines were drawn and where the districts were.
Okay.
So it's like,
right.
I get it, but it isn't great.
So that's interesting, because then so that tells you like, actually this kind of is what this group would have really looked like, but still, and move. So it's tough. It's like, do you want to be as authentic as possible, or do you want someone? I mean, Brian could have easily been, or like, I mean, the athlete. I mean, and still, this is not like something to push, but especially in 85. Right. Like, the athlete character could have totally been Black, and that would have been a stereotype in itself. But like, do you know what I mean? Like, there could have been just something. So I'm like, but I say that a lot about movies we love from the past. It's like, all right, this was really white, but
I'm not about erasing history. I think it's important for us to acknowledge that the lack of diversity, the lack of just the diversity in the cast, the diversity in the writing teams, the just the visibility of the people of color, having someone who was part of the LGBTQ community. Like, these were people that were severely marginalized in these really iconic movies from particularly the 80s. Was really homophobic. And really racist.
Jesus.
It's just like, we don't want to gloss over our history, but at the same time, we have to be able to, in current cinema, we have to be able to offer something for everybody. People like, if you were gay or a person of color watching these movies, you had to identify with somebody who didn't look like you. And me growing up like suburban white cis woman, like I always had somebody to look up to in film. Like, there was always somebody that was available to me. I had a Disney princess that looked like me. Like, the simple things that people are all up in arms about, like, even today. And it's like, oh, we're pushing diversity and inclusion. Yeah, wasn't it nice, like, when you had people that you could relate to on film? Right. Don't you think other people would want that too? Like, it's kind of a no-brainer.
And there will still be characters that you can relate to and look up to, or they're not going away. It's not going
away.
It's just doing a little bit of like making sure some bases are covered, right? I know, it's crazy.
It's just to make sure that everybody feels included. Everyone should belong. It's art. Like, at the end of the day, everyone should have something that's you know, even if it's not for you, it's for somebody else.
Right. And it's probably going to make the story even better. I really think so, right? Yeah, everyone should feel seen, especially in a story like this that is all about kind of the 5 archetypes, the kind of pillars of like school life, of like who are you when you start out, you know? So it's like, yeah, we could have just added a couple more details and it would have been a little bit more well-rounded, but at least we have what we have, which is still very good. And I think a lot of people, of course, it's so successful and such a classic because there is at least someone that you relate to, you know? So at least we have that.
Or wanted to be like, you know?
Or wanted to be like,
And touch each other in a way they never dreamed possible.
Why'd you do that?
I knew you wouldn't.
I love Claire's line during towards the end when like kind of the all is lost moment when like they were getting along. We had some montages, which are so great. But you know, now we just confessed and now we're kind of like down in the dumps. And like when Claire says like, your friends are we're the people your friends look up to. And it's like, ooh, it's true. But like, ugh, I can't believe you said that, you know? And Brian calls her like, so what does he say? Like egotistical, I think.
Yes.
And like, and then Bender calls her a bitch and she's like, why am I a bitch? Because I'm telling the truth. And it's like, ugh, yeah. So I do really appreciate that the script is always kind of wavering back and forth between some hard truths, some fun moments, some comedy, some heavy, you know? So I think it's a pretty special script that way, that it never kind of just switches and stays over there. It's always kind of much like a real conversation with any friends, but especially like friends you wouldn't normally hang out with. It's gonna be so fun, and then it's gonna be like weird, and you're gonna be like, all right, I want to go, you know? I just feel like I could relate to that, you know?
Well, and there's an authenticity in what Claire is saying, because that is exactly, she would never have the forethought to try and soften the blow. She's never had to do that with anybody else. So she's not going to put thought into it and kindly find a way to say what she wanted to say. She's just going to say it because she's never had to explain herself because nobody questions her.
Right.
Or her
she's never had to be delicate with like how the rules are because the rules work for her very well. I also have a special like place for this movie because in one of my kind of first acting classes in Philly at this place, Mike Lemon Casting, I was given the Andrew monologue of taping the buns together, which I always was like, buns, right? You have to be number one. I was pretty young. I was like, I think, you know, and which it was totally fine, but I think I was only in middle school at that time. So and I knew it was from Breakfast Club, but I can't remember if I had seen it yet. But I was given that heavy monologue, which is, you know, but this movie is such an acting class movie. I've given kids scenes from it. Like, it's just so perfect. You know, like the lines are great. There's, like we said, there's anger. There's then some funny bits all in the same conversation. So just want to shout out.
And the humor is very organic. Like, it's not contrived or anything.
And maybe that's because of maybe that's because they were able to ad lib a bit and improv and make it feel authentic to themselves. You know, I feel like that always, when that shines through, it really makes for a great conversation, you know?
Well, and these kids feel real. So this was in a time where kids didn't have, like, I say kids, but they were like, you know, 18 to like early to mid 20s. And they didn't have the media training that like someone like Zendaya or you know, like who's another Disney kid, Sabrina Carpenter. Like they don't have the media training that exists now, and there was no way for them to prepare for any of this. They were just their authentic selves. So it's just, I think it's why we don't get movies like this now, because if you are getting a child actor or like, you know, a true teen or young adult, they've already been coached.
Yeah, I'm part of the problem. I'm like, okay, you need to say it this way. No, yeah, I know. It's everything's kind of just been part of the machine rather than, for the most part, we still, you know, we hear people are found like out of nowhere and they're great, you know. But yeah, it's all about the stars and those who have already had success and have been part of the machine. Yeah.
Universal Pictures presents Emilio Estevez, Paul Gleason, Anthony Michael Hall, Judd Nelson, Molly Ringwald, and Ali Sheedy in a John Hughes film.
Hey, Rewinders. If you're loving this conversation as much as I am, give the show 5 stars for our 5 main characters and a thumbs up on YouTube. You might be able to tell from listening or watching this episode that I'm not in my normal recording space. I'm actually home visiting my family in their condo, which is very fitting for this movie. I feel like I'm a teen again. But it's not just Jackie and me who are celebrating the 40th anniversary of The Breakfast Club. Here is my brand new friend Victoria. She's a first-time watcher of this movie, so here are her thoughts.
Hi, this is Victoria. My Instagram is Paper and Screen, where I talk about both books and movies. My husband and I recently watched The Breakfast Club for the first time, actually, and it is such a classic film. Everyone is like, oh my gosh, you have to see it. So we finally added it to our list. We're watching 100 movies this year. I definitely see the value in it. I think I would have enjoyed it more perhaps as a teenager in the 80s. I feel like it really would have resonated strongly then, but there's certain things that are problematic to me, especially the way that Claire basically gets harassed by Bender and then weirdly ends up with him in the end. I'm not sure if I buy that or how good that feels to me. My husband's not a huge fan of how Ali Sheedy's character totally changes herself in the end from going to from this cool goth girl to some pretty princess kind of. I don't know. It's a weird transformation, but it is a fun movie. It is iconic. It's a great movie, like so much of its time. So I'm glad that I was able to enjoy it and experience it. And I definitely look forward to exploring more 80s classics.
What's that?
Sushi.
Sushi?
My sister and I, to this day, we say sushi like Judd Nelson because of how he says it. It's so funny.
Well, it's also such a shock that she's eating sushi, and it's such a great choice because it's random, and of course
that was an Ali Sheedy input. She's like. It was a rare commodity in, the mid 80s. It was a luxury item, and Claire would definitely have it. Cool. But Claire, it's been 4 hours since you got here. If you're eating at 11, has that sushi been refrigerated?
True. Ooh, yeah, and I have pushed things to the limit with non-refrigeration when bringing stuff to work or whatever. But sushi, yeah, that's something you don't want to mess with. You're so right. I didn't think about that. Yeah. The whole lunch thing that whole moment is so funny for everyone, because then I know Andrew has so much food because he's an athlete. And then I can't really remember did Bender even eat? I don't think he really does.
No, he didn't bring lunch. Brian had a little bagged lunch, and then Andy had
I think it was peanut butter and jelly or something. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And we already talked about Allison's lunch, and when she throws the bologna up onto that weird Delia Dietz library sculpture, and it just
yes, you're so right. That is so Delia. Oh my God, yeah, that's great.
But,
so great.
Yeah, so it's that moment always makes me laugh, and then there's this weird moment of physical comedy with Emilio Estevez in the magazine rack when Bender takes out all of the screws out of the door.
Yeah.
And just him trying to climb over the magazine rack. It kills me every time. And I don't know if it's it was supposed to be that funny, but I find it absolutely hilarious. And it's just so silly him trying to climb over the magazine rack. His foot keeps slipping. It's very silly in a very serious movie. This is what I mean about the comedy is very organic and the moments seem very natural. But I mean, just as far as favorite moments, the dance sequence is fantastic.
Oh my God. Jackie, I wrote in my notes, and I've seen this a bunch of times, but I had forgotten just how much fun that dance montage is towards the end after they've, been getting a lot of stuff out. Now they got to purge and just dance. Before I die and before we die, we need to be in a dance montage just like that.
100%.
They are letting it out. They are, the way Ali Sheedy is just
it's just like this. I still, and then Bender's whipping his hair, and Molly Ringwald's whipping her
Molly
hair.
Ringwald is doing the kick on the stairs, and it looks so good.
She's basically skanking, and I'm I love this. I will say that probably that scene inspired like my dance moves for the rest of my life.
Oh,
It was,
Amen.
even though it's like completely spastic, it's just when I'm alone dancing around my kitchen to like, I'll put on like Edge of Glory or something. And like, that's how I'll be dancing around my kitchen.
Good choice. Good choice. That fits this vibe too. I could totally,
it's the perfect. You're alone.
I'm going to play Edge of Glory while playing that and see how, I bet it matches perfectly.
Well, and the music in the movie too, it's all very like obscure artists, but it's so like, we are not alone. Like or even like when they're running through the halls, like, I don't know what they're saying. The man beneath the white, or like beneath the light. I don't know the lyrics to the song, but I'm like, it fits. It doesn't feel like it was from anywhere else except this movie. I've never heard any of those artists like ever again. I know Carla DeVito's done some other stuff, but
we haven't even mentioned, speaking of music, the iconic "Don't You Forget." You know, I mean, but besides that, everything feels a little bit more obscure, a little more. And also, I had forgotten that the movie has these moments where music is so part of the emotion, especially for Bender. Like he shouts "fuck you," and like there's a couple moments where then there's like a very intense sound of like of music. You know, I had forgotten about that, and also I totally forgot that I'm pretty sure it's Andrew. I think it's around the time they're dancing. He breaks the glass door.
Yeah, that always pisses me off because I'm like, okay, I've smoked weed. You don't punch glass. Like, or go on a crazy like, woo! Like,
right.
You know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you're pretty high, I mean, I can kind of barely move.
So
I'm like the opposite guy. Maybe it's a different kind of weed. But I didn't like that either just because I only like Bender being destructive. I don't really want anyone else to be destructive. Do you know what I mean? And even when Bender's destructive, it's too much, obviously. I mean, he's I was saying, he's kind of a villain, you know?
He is. But like at the same time, so charming. Like some of my favorite lines come from him. Like, and it's just how he's saying them. Mister, have you finished your paper? Like just how he says it is so funny. Yeah, sweetheart, you couldn't ignore me if you tried.
That was a good
being
one.
bad feels pretty good. I had a T-shirt that had him with his feet up. I had 2 Breakfast Club T-shirts that I wore all the time in high school. That one had Bender on it. Says, "Being bad feels pretty good, huh?"
Being bad feels pretty good, huh?
And the other one was with Ali Sheedy, and it said, "When you grow up, your heart dies." And I would wear the crap out of them until they started peeling, and then I had to throw them out. But I was obsessed with this movie.
I love that. I also, some other quotes that I wrote down. Claire is a fat girl's name.
Yes, I say that to my mom sometimes because her name is Claire and she knows the movie and she's like, shut up.
Now that is funny. Oh my God. Yeah, I love that line and how she's so offended, and then how he says you're going to squeeze out a few puppies, which always made me laugh as a kid. I was like, oh my God, that's so funny. And then, it's so good.
It's so rude.
Rude.
But it's funny. And like, he's like, if he gets up, we'll all get up. It'll be anarchy. Like, I like, if I were in that class, I always kind of liked it when people talked back to the teacher because I was like, later on when I was in high school, I kind of got a little snarky back, but like I always I had such respect for people who had a disrespect for authority.
Oh God. Terrible. Well, I was, it's funny. I was one of those kids, not that I was not that bad, but I should not have yelled at some teachers, or I don't know who I thought I was, and that my white privilege I think was on display and I didn't even know it. So I don't want to say I have regrets, but I do cringe at like some of the stupid fights I got into with authority figures. I don't know. I had nothing to be that upset about, so I don't know what was going on with me. But yeah, I was one of those kids that there was a moment with a librarian that I just am not proud of at all. And it's so sad it was a librarian. But that was me. Sorry, everyone. Sorry about the shouting in the library. That was definitely me. I guess I was just having a bad day, But I hear you. I did kind of appreciate anyone, at least within reason, who stood up and said something to a teacher or whatever, right? Because there are some teachers that are shitty. There were some people that should not have been working and all over the place, not even just in our school.
100%.
You know,
and
right? Like,
I was always like really, really, I took a shine to the people that were able to kind of buck authority a little bit when I was afraid to. And then it gave me the confidence to kind of do it myself later in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, it's definitely inspiring. It's just go easy now. You know, make sure there's a good
don't
reason.
Yell if you don't have to.
I think I was a little, my young Aries was like, really, that ram was bucking sometimes. I'm like, what? Okay, calm down, take a minute. But
I'm a drama queen, so it's like I have moments even now where I'm like, well, I should just kill myself, or like, saying like very Lucille Bluth, like.
Oh my God, I love. Which is so funny because over the holidays I met your amazing husband Chris, and I feel like he is so not a drama queen. He must really, you must bring out a little bit in him, and he must kind of tame you at times. Am I right?
Yes. So I am like in the relationship, it's like he's so easygoing that like when we have a very like the relationship that Judy Garland had with her dresser, like where she would be freaking out and he would freak out more so that she would stop freaking out and she'd be like, calm down. Like, of course I'll go on. And so I feel like sometimes he has to do that to kind of ground me, because when he freaks out, I'm like, oh my God, like, why is he freaking out? And then I have to kind of like, bring him down. But I think it's all intentional so that I am kind of brought back to earth, because when I have not eaten, when I am just like very like high emotional, like I tend to run very hot-blooded, and he likes to make fun of me for being Italian and blame it on me being Italian, which is partially true. But like I've always been a very dramatic kid. And I've turned into a very dramatic adult, and I think we even each other out very well.
Good.
I've got you for the rest of your natural-born life if you don't watch your step. You want another one? Yes. You got it. You got another one right there. That's another one, pal.
Cut it out.
Just going back to the time period, I love that Vernon says, I make $31,000 a year. When I heard that, I was like, but back then, 40 years ago,
yeah,
I mean, that was different. That was probably double, or something like that, But I just thought that was so funny hearing in the 2025 lens, like, oh dang,
well,
what are you doing?
He's so bitter. Like, and again, that's another amazing scene. It just shows how good of an actor that Paul Gleason is, and Judd Nelson, because you get some real emotion. Bender does not emote. He's like, he deflects with humor for the whole movie, and then it's like, it isn't until he goes into his, it was a better year at the Bender household. Like he does whole thing. Smoke up, Johnny. Like all of that.
When he acts out as his like father, it's like, ooh, we're getting dark,
Yeah. And you see him genuinely emote. Like it looks like he, unfortunately, a lot of people in abusive situations, it's like he wants to cry, but then he's pushing it down. And very similar when Vernon threatens him. Like that was scary for me as a kid watching that and knowing like, God, like have teachers really done that? Have teachers really like, do they think that they can speak to underage kids this way?
I know, right?
It was very villainous, very scary. And it was a great exercise in like how well that they could pull out the talent of Paul Gleason and Judd Nelson, like playing off of each other like that. They were just amazing.
Yeah, they really go head to head. I mean, they're iconic, when he's giving him more detentions, right? Like, eat my shorts. You want another? Which I'm pretty sure not another teen movie totally makes fun of that. But that is electric. Do you know what I mean? Going back and forth. Whoa, it would be my pleasure, or whatever he says, like, ooh, it's like a volley session, just, oh my God, back and forth.
I mean, the chemistry between them, I know people are always talking about like male-female chemistry, but the chemistry between Judd Nelson and Paul Gleason was fantastic. And because of his antagonistic relationship with Molly Ringwald and how rude and method he was on set with her, Paul Gleason was really the only person kind of sticking up for him to stay on the film. And I'm glad he did.
Oh, That's interesting. Okay. I knew that, I guess Judd pissed off John Hughes by constantly being an asshole.
Yeah.
But that's interesting that Gleason, okay. Yeah.
He was the one to stick up for him. And I'm glad he did, because he was like, he's a good actor. And the two of you are absolutely, I mean, the word that you used, electric to watch. It's just, I'm so glad that he fought for that. And we have those moments now, because it's two of the more serious beats of the movie. Because I mean, when he's in the gym and everything, it's a little silly, but like two of the most serious beats in the movie are between the two of them, and the chemistry is off the charts.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, we think of the 5 kids, but Gleason, Vernon, is so pivotal to the whole thing, of course. And did you see, I read that the janitor, which not a super pivotal role, but fun. I do love his line, how he's like, I'm the eyes and ears of this school or this institution, I think he says, right? That was originally going to be Rick Moranis, which is
and he got fired for doing it in a Russian accent. Like, what?
Yeah, like when you hear of those occasional stories, how it was going to be someone else and they went too far in one direction.
Auditioned to be Bender.
Oh, and I saw John Cusack and Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage would have been great. John Cusack, some of these guys were too sweet. They're just way
too sweet.
Calm. I can't even... no way. No. But
because it's like
Nicolas Cage, I could have seen. Yeah, they're all great.
Amazing.
We
would have gotten the Nicolas Cage that we have now.
Oh, yeah, we would have gotten eyes, like, whoa. Yeah.
I think the reason why we have the Nick Cage that we have now is because of Moonstruck. If it wasn't for Moonstruck, because Cher is willing to take a shot on him. Like, Raising Arizona and, Valley Girl and everything were all good. And, he was successful in his own right in, the early movies that he did. But the Nick Cage we have now is because of Moonstruck. And to think, like, if he had done Breakfast Club, it would have catapulted him sooner than Moonstruck did.
Any questions?
Yeah, I got a question. Does Barry Manilow know that you raid his wardrobe?
Give you the answer to that question, Mr. Bender, next Saturday.
So interesting about it's a great way to pivot back to my original question, the janitor. So Carl, the janitor, in a cutscene, actually has, like, when he's talking to all the kids, and he's like, I'm the eyes and ears of the school, he goes further into, like, where they're all going to end up.
Oh, interesting.
And so that, like, that got me thinking, so if we did a sequel every 10 years, would Carl's version, come to pass? So I wrote it down, and he tells the kids, like, Brian will be successful, but have 3 heart attacks. And,
oh my God.
Because of all the stress. Andy will, he won't go anywhere with his athletic career. He'll marry a stewardess, and they'll both get fat and miserable. Bender will get 10 years in prison for hard drugs. Allison will end up living a meaningless suburban existence where her art is underappreciated, and she'll just pop out a bunch of kids and end up joining the PTA. And Claire will get a ton of plastic surgery and marry a wealthy but unfaithful man with many, many partners.
Oh,
and I'm like, this is so dark, but like,
oh God, I just got chills. I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I want to see that sequel.
So this is kind of a sliding doors thing. I do think, unfortunately, if they don't change their actions, like, I was thinking about it after I watched it this time. I'm like, I wonder if these kids actually talk to each other again after this whole thing. Like, they're, the two couples, quote unquote, are being coupley. It's like, will this last past the Saturday? And like, will, Claire says, like, oh, so, Andy, you're telling me in front of all your sporto friends, like, if you said hi to Brian, they wouldn't laugh their asses off. Like,
right. Come on, like, just because we're getting along now, your friends are going to make sure that you don't keep this going. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. You know what would have been interesting is maybe if we didn't get a sequel every 10 years, but at least one idea is, what if we got a sequel 10 years later, just one? Maybe it was called The Lunch Bunch then. I don't know. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. I don't know. Before sunrise, sunset.
Before sunrise.
But yeah, what if the sequel was sort of a little experimental in that, yeah, like we're kind of going down the two roads and we're comparing them. We see the bleak road for everyone, or mix it up. Maybe some characters are bleak on one side and then some are the other, because I could also see like Allison, and maybe I don't think it's too happy, but I could see her like moving to a city and maybe not doing like cool grunge art, but actually like becoming like a graphic designer or,
that's what I have written down.
Oh my
God.
That's
exactly what I have written down for her.
Yeah. Something normal, but still artistic and cool, but
Great
not
minds.
like she's, you know what I mean? So I could see that. I kind of get the vibe Andy, like a good thing for him could be, he just becomes like a teacher. I feel like those guys often just become a teacher or like a gym teacher or coach, and he just sort of lives in the area his whole life, but he's like happy and like, he's not a professional athlete, but he's now coaching kids. Like that would be fine. I could see that, Yeah, Bender's tough because Bender could go down that route, of course. And Vernon even says like, what's really funny is in 5 years, look at Bender's life. Like that sadly can happen, or Bender might end up being totally normal. And he might be like, yeah, remember when I was such an asshole? Sorry, guys. I could see him being.
Do you think he'd be like something like a parole officer where he would like counsel people?
That's interesting. Wow. Or like even just a guidance counselor or like, oh my God, what if he becomes a therapist? Now that I could see the group being like, you're a therapist?
You're a therapist. I think that's a bit of a stretch for him. I feel like parole officer or like even a school guidance counselor. I don't know, with his rampant distaste for authority, if either of those is in the cards, but I never thought I would be a corporate girly. So, you never know where you're going to end up in life.
So that could be really cool to see two different versions in the same movie. I mean, it's almost kind of getting like sci-fi or something, but I don't know. That could just be a cool way to do it in a new, fresh way where it's not just them getting together again, but like two versions and seeing kind of each person have a good or at least decent and the bad, That could be kind of cool. Now I'm like,
so for Claire,
do it like as a play or something.
This is amazing. And again, people should pay us to write this. Like when you were talking about Scream 7 the other day, and I'm like, this is better. What you have put to page right it's now like, is better than anything we're going to get.
Do it, right? I know, right here, a dream team. I know.
It's, so for Claire, it's funny that everything that you mentioned about Andy, about Allison, I've already actually written that down.
Oh my God, brilliant.
Completely. I am of the same mind. But for Allison, or not Allison, Claire, I was like, I feel like she could have, and again, this is because I just binged a shit ton of Gilmore Girls. I feel like she could have a very Lorelai Gilmore restart in life. So if she did get involved with Bender, I think like the dark path for her is that she would end up having a teenage pregnancy. And like she would finally lose her virginity to Bender. And, if they pursued that really, really toxic like relationship, I don't see it going anywhere. But I do see like there could be something, and that's real. Like that happens to people, like it's especially in the scope of the 80s where there wasn't a lot of conversation around safe sex until the AIDS crisis. In schools, I think that that's totally realistic. And so
that's great.
All right. So maybe she like decides to keep the baby and her parents disown her and she ends up having to start out on her own, and she starts a boutique and, kind of starts her life over again in a small town and has like a little shop with her daughter. And I'm like, it's very Gilmore Girls, but like,
you're right. It fits. I could totally see that. We're now, and also, I mean, it could just be interesting. Like some popular friend from school who she like kind of like, I could see her not keeping in touch with a lot of the people that were so important to her, So it could be an interesting like reconnection with someone now that she kind of has a new life. She's not as rich and, comfortable. Yeah. That's interesting.
She's got an entirely new support system. Like her parents have written her off. Her friends have written her off. Like, and it's also, I think too, kind of playing into that other Molly Ringwald movie For Keeps with Randall Bettenkoff. Like I was thinking about that a little bit too. But like, where would Brian be? He's the only one that I'm just like, I love the idea that he was closeted.
I know, yeah. Like that could be, I mean, no matter what, he's a brain, so he's going to be super smart and
Yeah.
successful. But like, yeah, I wonder as what? Will he be like a professor? I kind of see like, you know what could be so interesting, like in a fun way, is because I mean the whole heart attack thing, that's realistic. That's a good, more bleak one for him. That
Yes.
he's successful, but his health is deteriorating. Maybe he's not married, maybe he's kind of lonely, I don't know.
Yeah.
But then another one could be like, I could see him being like that smart expert that's like interviewed on TV or whatever, like as a
He's like
random.
his little headshot on CNN,
Yes.
like,
Yeah. And
yeah.
he's written books, and yeah, he's like a commentator. Like that could be, again, it's kind of random, but it's like perfectly random for someone who knows so many things. Maybe it's politics or whatever. And so not that he has his own show. That might be too
No, he's just kind of
fantasy.
tapped
But he's
as
this kind
like
of
a network
go-to. Yeah.
affiliate. Can you imagine being with the person that you were involved with when you were 16, 17? I would rather chew glass. Like,
Yeah, I don't know how people do it. I have a lot of respect for it, but I just feel
if
like
it works, it works. But like,
if it works, it works. But also, like, how do you not often think about what could have been, what could have been
right.
different? Like, that's like a big sliding doors
Your
situation in my
brain
mind.
isn't
Like,
fully formed until
no.
you're after the age of 23.
Hmm.
So it's like, imagine being with somebody, unless you're growing together. And it's because I know I'm going to say this and get like a ton of hate from people or like, I married my,
Right.
high school sweetheart.
I've been together for, 27
my parents
years.
are high school sweethearts too,
Oh, I
but
love
they
that. Yeah.
they grew together and things were different back then. It's like, you didn't have a lot of, they went to Palmyra. They didn't really have a lot outside of their small town. And
right. Yeah. They were
much,
comfortable and
yeah,
they ride the wave together. Yeah.
and they've grown together. And so, not to discount that, but like me personally, I know I did so much growing in my 20s. And I mean, even now in my 30s, I would say within the last like 4 years, I've even done a ton of growing post-pandemic of like who I am and like what I stand for as a person. So I don't see any of these relationships that were cultivated by the end of the movie. I don't see them lasting beyond
they can't last. It's
school.
just it's too fantasy, right? Yeah. But I like your idea that maybe it's Bender and Claire, maybe they do have a baby. And so that could be interesting to see them 10 years later, still maybe having to be part of each other's life, maybe, or maybe not. Maybe Bender, disappeared.
And maybe he did. I like the idea of like, he did go to jail and now he's somewhat reformed and, wants to be a decent dad and available to his child because, Claire had to raise the baby by herself. And
yeah. That's pretty beautiful. Yeah. Wow. Now I'm like, okay, who's gonna make it? But I doubt. I mean, now since John passed away and everyone.
No, and
like we'll never get it. But it could be fun whenever this movie enters like public domain.
Yeah.
Cool.
I would love for Molly Ringwald to like give her blessing on that storyline in particular, because I feel like it's dark enough and realistic enough that because she has come out and said her daughter was grossed out by the end of the movie. And I'm like, see, at least we're raising the kids right.
Totally.
She has come out against, the two of them being an item because he's verbally abusive, as charming as he is when he is charming. And like whatever gross chemistry you have with people like that, there is a voice in the back of your head that tells you that it's a bad idea and it's a red flag and don't get involved. But like, I think that if she just gave in to youthful abandon and was really trying to get back at her parents, because when he says like, you were saying your parents, use you as a weapon against each other, don't you think I'd be outstanding in that capacity? And she's got a really like kind of like mischievous grin, like she's all in on it.
Yeah.
I feel like Molly Ringwald would back that.
Why are you being so nice to me? Because you're letting me.
The Breakfast Club.
At least what we have, obviously we're talking about it for a reason, right? It's so good, it's super moving, and it's super fun. running through the hallways, the dancing, the whistling, when they're all sleeping. I mean, we just have lots of fun moments sprinkled with some real statements, which is why I think it's lasted so many years as like a true classic.
It's a movie that treats youth problems with a level of seriousness. Mm-hmm. And so I think that wasn't something that was a priority before. There wasn't a lot of youth-centric stories. So this has become a rite of passage for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a rite of passage for me, for sure.
And that's what happens when you spend 9 hours together on a Saturday at school. Detention never looked so fun and so dramatic. Am I right? Thanks so much for listening to or watching this episode, and thank you to my pal, my longtime friend, Jackie Renne, for coming back and sharing your love for this memorable movie. What a fun chat.
Sincerely yours, The Breakfast Club.
Thank you, Straw Hut Media, Kyle Motzinger, Greg Clements, and Portland Media Center. Follow me on Instagram at Release Date Rewind if you haven't already to see more footage from this chat and from this film. And get ready, everybody, for the next topic on Release Date Rewind, a movie very near and dear to my heart, the Brady Bunch movie. Bye.